We've seen throughout this course that JavaScript can be somewhat liberal about things when it comes to what it allows. There is a way that you may have heard of to opt in to tell the JavaScript engine that you would like it to process your code in a stricter way, to be more regimented, to be pickier about what it lets you do. Now, this doesn't solve every possible case where JavaScript is more liberal, because JavaScript is a very flexible language, and with flexibility comes a lack of rules sometimes. But strict mode can help you prevent errors under certain circumstances. Let's show you one right now. Let's suppose that I declare a variable person, and then I go to set its value, but let's suppose that I mistype the variable, and I put person instead of person. Fairly easy to do, and fairly easy to not notice when you're in the midst of coding. So let's console.log person. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think this is going to error? Let's see. Nope. Person exists. I have an empty object. It's sitting on the global object, window.person. And there's also window.person, which is undefined because I never set it, because I mistyped the variable. That can cause some really squirrely errors that are tough to track down. So JavaScript has an option, and you're quite literally telling the JavaScript engine to please be stricter, to implement some extra rules when you parse my code, when you try to execute it. And so use strict, one of its most useful aspects when you opt in to using the strict version of JavaScript is that it doesn't let this happen. You must declare a variable in order to set it equal to anything, in order to use it. So instead I get person is not defined, uncaught reference error. So that's good. You use strict as literally a string. It's a string called use strict, and it must go either at the top of your file or at the top of a function, because you can make a function be executed with use strict, essentially a new execution context, have its code run with use strict and not the rest of the file, not the global execution context or other contexts. So if I mimicked what I just did, and I got rid of use strict would have to be at the top if I wanted to use it everywhere. If I got rid of it so it's not executing globally with the strict rules, what's going to happen? Well, let me go ahead and call log new person after this. So I've declared a person, mistyped the name, so I have a different variable set equal to an empty object, and I'm outputting it. Then I'm calling log new person, which generates a new execution context, and the first line of code that it runs across is use strict. So when this is executing, when this execution context is executing, I'm going to see that the JavaScript engine uses stricter rules, won't allow certain things as it executes the code. So I have the same setup, and let's see what happens. So the global, go ahead and did it, because I wasn't opted in to use strict, but I put the string use strict as my first line, and it has to be the first line, on my function. And so my function executed with the stricter variant. The JavaScript engine was stricter about things and threw an error. So you may be asking, why didn't we use strict throughout this entire course? Because this is an opt-in. This is an extra feature. And not every JavaScript engine implements use strict the same way. They don't all agree on every rule that they'll implement. So this is an extra thing and not something you can 100% rely on. But it can be useful. So you might want to use it at the top of your file or functions. Also a note there, if you have several JavaScript files, and then as part of your pushing them to production, you concatenate and minify them. That's very common, where you put all your JavaScript files together in one file, so it only has to be downloaded once. If that first file has useStrict at the top, then the whole thing will be processed using that strict JavaScript engine flag. So you might cause yourself some trouble if other JavaScript files don't follow the strict rules. All right, with that aside, this is something you can just drop into your code, and it just works. The JavaScript engine knows what to do. There's a wonderful link, again on the Mozilla Developer Network, under strict mode. It talks about how strict mode is implemented, at least in Firefox and many other browsers. I'll leave this link for you in the next lecture. Let's move on.